This is our main character, Keita. He scored the highest on the entrance exam at his high school and is someone who deeply despises supernatural phenomena. Keita's best friend, Aiko, has repeatedly invited him to take photos together, but Keita always refuses because every time he takes a photo, it ends up distorted by some supernatural phenomenon. Keita has always had some sort of connection to the supernatural because, in the past, he was once possessed. That incident put his friends in danger, so for the next 2 years, Keita isolated himself from the world to avoid harming those around him. However, thanks to Aiko and his family, he finally gained the courage to reintegrate into society. One day, Aiko asked him about the new job she had introduced to him. Keita hadn't checked it out yet. Aiko explained that the job was tutoring, and she believed Keita would do well. Determined to reintegrate into the community, Keita decided to make an effort to suppress his body's spiritual connections. When he arrived at the job site, the intermediary gave him information about the girl he was supposed to tutor. The intermediary described her as a prodigy and asked Keita to train her well. Following the address provided by the intermediary, Keita went to the girl's house, but he found it strange because the place was clearly Aiko's house. Keita asked Aiko about the girl he was supposed to teach, and Aiko realized it was her cousin who had recently moved in. Aiko was delighted that Keita would be tutoring her cousin. She then called her cousin out, and as soon as Keita saw Aiko's cousin, he suddenly panicked. The girl had 2 skull-shaped pupils and could tell that Keita had issues with the supernatural. On top of that, the stuffed animal she was holding was possessed. Keita realized that this girl was like him. Aiko introduced her as Yaoi, and Keita told Yaoi to go to her room to begin studying. However, Yaoi wanted Keita to accompany her to a supernatural location. Keita refused, insisting he was there to be her tutor. Yaoi then called the intermediary and accused Keita of harassment, forcing him to intervene and ask Aiko to do something about it. However, Aiko also wanted to go along, so Keita couldn't escape the situation. Keita couldn't understand why Aiko was so interested in these things. She explained that Yaoi often invited her to visit supernatural locations, but since she wasn't sure about the safety, she waited until Keita was there to agree. Keita said he didn't know much about the supernatural, so Aiko promised they would leave if things truly became dangerous. However, even before they arrived, Keita already felt a chill down his spine. Seeing Keita's fear, Yaoi urged Aiko to speed up. The supernatural location they arrived at was an abandoned phone booth. Aiko explained that this place was rumored to be where a woman was murdered. The woman was a gold digger who drained her boyfriend's money. When too many of her victims were buried in debt, they decided to take revenge. The woman fled into this phone booth and was killed by the men there. She later became a ghost, haunting anyone who stepped into the booth or called her phone number. Keita asked where people got the phone number, and Aiko said it had been widely shared online. Yaoi wanted to try calling the number, but Keita stopped her. However, Aiko wanted to play along, so Keita reluctantly agreed to make the call himself. If nothing happened, he wanted the group to leave. When Keita called, a supernatural phenomenon occurred in the phone booth. Yaoi threw her stuffed animal into the booth, and it immediately exploded. After that, the group quickly left. Back at Aiko's house, Keita demanded that Yaoi start studying immediately. Aiko also had a favor to ask Keita once the lesson was over. During the lesson, Keita realized that Yaoi was indeed a genius, though slightly unhinged. Yaoi wondered why the ghost didn't appear when she entered the phone booth, but did when Keita made the call. Keita explained that his ability to summon ghosts was 100% effective, which greatly intrigued Yaoi. Later, Aiko revealed to Keita that Yaoi wasn't actually her cousin. A year ago, Yaoi's parents passed away in an accident, which is why her family adopted her. Yaoi already had the ability to see ghosts before, but during a family outing, an accident occurred that granted her exceptional intelligence. Since then, Yaoi realized she could see the scenes between 2 worlds, and during the accident, her mother was taken away by something. This became the reason she wanted to find her mother again. When Keita heard about this, he decided to help Yaoi. Yaoi, upon waking up and overhearing this from downstairs, decided to develop a liking for Keita. The next day, Yaoi gave Keita a Buddha statue to protect him from evil spirits. Later, all 3 of them returned to the haunted phone booth. However, before they could do anything, the ghost appeared on its own and dragged Keita into the phone booth. It used the phone cord to strangle Keita, and even the Buddha statue wasn't enough to protect him. Yaoi grabbed a weapon and rushed to break open the phone booth's door. She used the Buddha statue to smash the phone and cut the cord. Yaoi decided she would help Keita get rid of any ghost targeting him. The 3 of them then returned home, but Keita still felt the chilling sensation of encountering a ghost hadn't faded. The reason was that Yaoi had captured the ghost from the phone booth and sealed it inside her stuffed animal. When they got back to Aiko's house, Keita wondered why, despite Yaoi's strong spiritual connection, her encounters with ghosts were so few, as if the ghosts were avoiding her. It made sense, though, because the phone booth ghost had just been taken back by Yaoi to be torn apart by other spirits. The next day, Keita went to tutor Yaoi as usual, but after their lesson, Yaoi asked Keita to go to another supernatural location to play. He refused because he had something to do that day. Aiko remembered it was the day Keita needed to undergo a cleansing ritual, so she decided to accompany him. Since being possessed in the past, Keita regularly had to undergo purification at his grandmother's shrine. After a long trip, all 3 of them arrived at Keita's grandmother's shrine. The moment she saw Yayoi, Keita's grandmother told her to leave, as she noticed Yayoi had destroyed more than 5 Buddha statues and was carrying a vengeful spirit with her. Keita had to explain that Yayoi was his student, so he reluctantly brought her along. Keita's grandmother called him into the shrine for the cleansing ritual. Curious, Keita asked Yayoi why she destroyed Buddha statues. Yayoi explained that she did it to check if the sealed spirits inside were the ones that took her mother. During the cleansing, Keita's grandmother asked if he meditated regularly, as it would help him resist possession by evil spirits. Meanwhile, Yayoi tried to sneak a look at Keita's cleansing, but Aiko showed her a picture of Keita instead. Aiko revealed that Keita's hands grew strange hairs actually. They were his nerves that extended and caused him great pain. His grandmother often had to sedate him to trim them, but they would always grow back. After completing the cleansing ritual, Aiko and Yayoi brought food for the two. Keita went to wash his face, leaving his grandmother to reveal something to Yayoi about the shrine. It was built to store living dolls. These dolls retained the personalities of their previous owners, and in the shrine's basement were dolls with immense power. If anyone trespassed, the dolls would take over their body. Keita then found a doll on the ground and decided to bring it to his grandmother for inspection. Yayoi, upon hearing this, asked Keita's grandmother about what cursed dolls looked like. She explained that the most dangerous dolls were Japanese ones dressed in red kimonos. Realizing that Keita had been possessed by a doll, Yayoi took her grandmother's sword and went to rescue him. Keita woke up in the basement, where the doll's hair was crawling into his mouth. Yayoi arrived and tried cutting the doll's hair with the sword, but it didn't work. She then stabbed the sword into the doll's head and stomped on the blade, slicing the doll in half. Yayoi declared that if these dolls continued harming people, she would destroy every last one of them. The dolls stopped their attack, and Keita was saved. He realized that although he brought the trouble upon himself, Yayoi still chose to save him. Afterward, Keita returned home with Aiko and Yayoi. He told his grandmother that he had decided to accompany Yayoi because she was his student, and even if it was dangerous, he couldn't leave her behind. His grandmother explained that his physical abilities were meant to protect others and not to bring harm, so he needed to change his perspective about himself. She also advised him to buy some peace statues to purify the evil spirits sealed within the Buddha statues that were following Yayoi. Later, Yayoi received a gift from Keita and decided to show him her collection. When Keita returned to her house, he was shocked to see a collection of evil spirits. To make matters worse, Yayoi had brought back the doll from earlier and reattached its neck using Keita's discarded nerves. Keita wanted to leave immediately and take Aiko with him, but she insisted the stuffed toys weren't dangerous, as she had lived there for over a year without any incidents. Yayoi also reassured Keita that she wouldn't let any evil spirits harm him. The next day, Keita visited Aiko's house as usual. Though he didn't want to go, he went out of concern for Aiko. She seemed perfectly normal, just like any other day. Keita went inside, and Aiko admitted that she had been living with Yayoi for over a year without anything bad happening, so Keita didn't need to worry too much. However, Yayoi persistently asked for Keita's fingernails, making him increasingly uneasy. During their lesson, Keita felt constantly threatened by Yayoi, so Aiko suggested easing the tension by taking them both out. However, the chosen destination was a spiritual location. While Aiko and Yayoi were excited to go, Keita decided to leave, openly admitting that he disliked going to such scary places. Yayoi, who had always assumed Keita enjoyed spiritual locations, was surprised. She had invited him to these places, believing he shared her interest. In truth, Keita found the entire ordeal with his curse bothersome and wanted to avoid it if possible. Seeing Keita unwilling to join them, Yayoi and Aiko decided to go on their own. Aiko was unsure about leaving Keita behind, but Yayoi assured her that if Keita wanted to remove the curse on his left hand, she would find a way to help him. Yayoi then told Aiko about a place they could visit to lift the curse, prompting Aiko to quickly agree and set off. Meanwhile, Keita continued his physical training, following his grandmother's advice. On the way home, he passed by a shopping area and decided to pick up some supplies for their next lesson. Yayoi, on the other hand, told Aiko about their destination, a deserted shrine filled with Buddha statues and statues symbolizing maternal love. The place was often associated with rumors of child spirits. Yayoi had been curious about the shrine, and thanks to Aiko's magazine, she remembered its location. As they traveled, Yayoi began to notice spirits appearing. When they arrived at the shrine, Yayoi instructed Aiko to stay in the car and seek help if she didn't return within an hour. Yayoi entered the shrine alone. Typically, she could only see 1/3 of the spirits in an area, meaning the remaining 2/3 were likely hiding inside the shrine. Upon entering, Yayoi discovered countless Buddha statues. She explained that the shrine honored a maternal deity who was once a demon that ate children. However, the Buddha had reformed the demon, turning it into a deity guiding lost child spirits. Over time, though, the child spirits corrupted the deity, reverting it to its demonic nature. Yayoi soon encountered the demon, which bound her legs. The child spirits used the opportunity to push a stone statue toward her. Meanwhile, Aiko noticed more than an hour had passed and drove off to find help. Yayoi managed to escape but sprained her ankle in the process. She began creating paper figures to act as decoys, but the demon and spirits started tracking her down. At the same time, Keita was still shopping for lesson supplies when Aiko found him. She urged him to help Yayoi, but Keita responded that if Yayoi got herself into trouble, she should deal with it herself. Aiko finally revealed that Yaoi was trying to lift Keita's curse, which compelled him to go with her. Meanwhile, the spirits relentlessly chased Yaoi, but wherever they thought she was hiding, they only found paper decoys she had left behind to mislead them. Yaoi eventually returned to the spirits' shrine and noticed they had all moved toward a specific direction. At that moment, Keita arrived at the shrine. However, as he approached, the spirits came outside, searching for him. Yaoi heard Keita calling her name, but he wasn't there to save her, he was being chased by the spirits. Yaoi wanted to destroy the demon statue with a hammer, but Keita noticed her injured leg. He rushed to her side, running around the shrine to draw the spirit's attention before grabbing Yaoi and helping her escape. Keita felt grateful for his daily training, which allowed him to pull off this rescue. They quickly jumped in, and Aiko drove them away as fast as she could. In the aftermath, Aiko had to pay a hefty sum to repair her car, while Keita spent a lot of money treating Yaoi's sprained ankle, especially since he didn't have insurance. As Keita carried Yaoi on his back to her home, she remarked how he reminded her of her father. Keita asked why Yaoi had knowingly taken such a dangerous risk, to which she replied that she considered him a friend and wanted to help resolve his troubles. She promised to explain later why she needed his fingernails and invited him to visit her room again. At her house, Yaoi explained the concept of surrogate dolls. If an evil spirit is sealed inside a doll along with a piece of the owner's body, the doll would absorb any misfortune intended for the owner. Yaoi revealed that she placed a strand of her hair into each of her dolls so they could share her injuries. If one doll was destroyed, the others would also sustain damage. Her request for Keita's fingernails was to create a protective doll for him. By showing Keita her collection, Yaoi demonstrated her trust in him and her view of him as a friend. Yaoi then revealed the fingernail of the demon statue from the shrine. She threw it to her dolls, telling them that the injuries they sustained today were caused by this nail. The spirits inside the dolls punished the nail, forcing it to beg Yaoi for mercy. When Keita asked why Yaoi collected evil spirits, she explained that the spirit that had taken her mother was incredibly powerful. To confront it, she needed to build an equivalent fighting force. Yaoi admitted that she was injured today just to retrieve a fragment of that demon, but if she could obtain its full form, she would be able to lift Keita's curse. She proposed that once she recovered, they would challenge the demon together again. Keita began to feel a glimmer of hope. He had resigned himself to living with the curse forever, but now he realized it might actually be lifted. He wanted to break the curse not only for himself, but also for Aiko, the person he had unintentionally cursed in the past. Yaoi asked if Keita was willing to join her in hunting demons and using them against one another. She also revealed that she was aware of Aiko's curse on her left hand. Yaoi assured him that if the spirit that cursed both of them was destroyed, the curse would vanish. Keita asked for time to think, as he wasn't sure if he wanted to continue down this spiritual path. Aiko was incredibly important to him. She had helped him reintegrate into society and had been there for him during his loneliest moments. However, if he agreed to Yaoi's plan, he would be going against Aiko's constant encouragement for him to live a normal life and stay away from the supernatural. Keita was torn. Should he continue living as an ordinary person and avoid the spiritual world, or dive deeper into it to save Aiko? The next day, Aiko decided to drive Keita to school. Yaoi joined them, as she wanted to visit their school during her break. Upon arriving, a crowd of students quickly surrounded Aiko to greet her, as she was quite famous for her recent success in the Science Olympiad. Keita and Yaoi were surprised to discover just how popular Aiko was. Many people invited Aiko to join their clubs, but she simply took a picture with them, exchanged contact information, and then returned to Keita. She no longer pursued scientific research, and her priority now was to attend school alongside Keita. While choosing classes, Keita noticed a class about urban legends. He had no interest in taking it, but Aiko seemed upset. She had always liked scary stories, but had avoided talking about them for Keita's sake. Seeing her on the verge of tears, Keita reluctantly agreed to tour the class, but made it clear he wouldn't enroll. Hearing this, Aiko's mood brightened. She admitted that although she excelled in science, there was something irresistibly fascinating about supernatural mysteries. Keita assumed the urban legends class would just discuss baseless rumors, but to his surprise, the class had a serious teacher who lectured on these topics. The teacher showed a video about a student who had been so overwhelmed by academic pressure that they self-immolated. This made Keita want to leave immediately, but it was too late. The teacher had already started the video. It depicted a lifeless-looking student, but there were also several shadowy figures in the background. Eventually, the student sat down and suddenly transformed into Keita. Flames erupted, and one of the shadows pointed directly at the camera. The teacher was shocked, claiming that the video had never shown this before. The students were unnerved and decided to leave. Meanwhile, one of Yaoi's stuffed animals mysteriously caught fire on one side, alerting her that the video was cursed. Yaoi stepped forward, sprinkled some kind of powder onto the tape, and managed to extract the malevolent spirit, transferring it into a straw doll. She explained that this spirit was much stronger than the ones she usually used as decoys for Keita. The spirit's curse worked by replacing the person in the video with whoever was watching it. Yaoi planned to make the spirit curse itself and break the curse, but after isolating it in a box and watching the video, Keita's hand unexpectedly caught fire. Yaoi asked Aiko to drive her and the spirit home so she could deal with it properly. Keita objected, fearing the spirit might set the car ablaze, but Yaoi argued that leaving it at school would be dangerous, and public transport would be even riskier. If there was any chance of harm, she wanted to minimize casualties. Yaoi assured them she could handle the curse, but Keita insisted on confronting it himself. Aiko approached Keita and explained why she always wanted to stay close to him. Unlike ordinary people, Keita could perceive spiritual phenomena, which fascinated her. More importantly, Keita had always protected her and supported her, even when she was cursed. Aiko acknowledged that Keita often blamed himself for her curse, but it had happened because she had taken part in a courage test, prompting Keita to follow her and keep her safe. Without his help, she might not have survived unscathed. Aiko told him she didn't want to be protected by him anymore. Instead, she wanted to help him. To her, Keita was someone important. Hearing this reminded Keita of similar words Aiko had said in the past, which had saved him. Feeling valued and supported, Keita was filled with hope and determination. He trusted that Yaoi and Aiko would do their best to help him. Aiko then came up with a plan. The three got into the car, but Keita had to remove all his clothes and bundle them up because the spirit was burning his belongings. As they drove, the spirit would continue to fight back by setting Keita's clothes on fire. Aiko took responsibility for driving as fast as possible so the wind could extinguish the flames. Their goal was to make it home before Keita's belongings were entirely consumed by fire. As the car sped away, the spirit intensified its attacks, setting Keita's clothes ablaze. Keita held his belongings out the window to let the wind douse the flames, but each time the fire went out, it reignited even more fiercely. Aiko had to accelerate further to strengthen the wind's force. Aiko kept increasing the car's speed as Yaoi quickly realized that the malevolent spirit was nearing its limit. After a while, the spirit finally stopped its attacks, and Keita was safe. Yaoi took the spirit back to her room to handle it, while Keita and Aiko went to the hospital for a checkup. Upon their return, Keita thanked Aiko for doing her best to help him. Aiko shared that Yaoi had told her about the origins of the spirit. It had been born from the grudge of a university student who was severely bullied. The bullying escalated without anyone intervening to protect the student, leading to a tragic end. That student had cursed their tormentors, and this malevolent spirit within the videotape was the result. Yaoi planned to train the spirit to control it. Keita hoped he would never face a similar fate and aimed to graduate peacefully alongside Aiko. For now, he resolved to cherish everything in the present. Back in her room, Aiko sat in a space filled with photos of Keita. She genuinely did not want Keita to be in danger, but exposing him to spiritual phenomena was her way of both indulging her fascination and staying close to him. The next day, Keita went to school wearing a new outfit chosen by Aiko. She had selected it to help him make a good impression and reintegrate into the community. The outfit was suitable for the season, and she even added a pair of lensless glasses to give him an intellectual look. Keita decided that today he would make new friends and took the initiative to engage with others. At school, he met the group leader, Yama, who reassured Keita that as a new student, he would soon make friends. Keita, however, was determined to succeed on his own and prove to himself that he could reintegrate into society. At home, Aiko watched Keita's progress with tears of joy. But then Yaoi unexpectedly entered the room, forcing Aiko to hide her emotions. Previously, Keita had mentioned that he had encountered a few acquaintances at the university, but they were all connected to Aiko. They only greeted him out of politeness because they knew him through her. Feeling like an outsider, Keita resolved to find a true friend independently. Though slightly saddened, Aiko supported Keita by choosing his outfit and glasses. Yaoi, however, quickly opened Aiko's computer and uncovered her secret. Aiko had been secretly monitoring Keita through the glasses she gave him. Yaoi realized Aiko had feelings for Keita, but decided to confiscate the computer to protect Keita's privacy. Just then, a sinister aura began to emanate from the computer. Alarmed, Aiko grabbed it back, as she had no idea where the aura had come from. Yaoi reassured Aiko that liking Keita wasn't wrong and promised to fully support her. Eventually, the two sat down together to observe Keita's attempts to make friends. By this time, Keita was at a restaurant, sitting with two other people. He decided to take the initiative and asked for their names and club affiliations. Though he seemed a bit awkward, at least he was brave enough to start the conversation. The young man introduced himself as Akira from the law department, while the girl, Kitoko, was from the economics department. Since they were from different fields, it seemed like starting a meaningful conversation would be difficult. Keita searched for a topic and asked why they had joined the club. Both responded that they had joined to travel. Aiko noticed that Keita seemed to struggle with short questions to keep a conversation going, which made her happy because it meant Keita couldn't do much without her. Later, Keita met Yama again, who mentioned that his group was planning another trip and asked if Keita wanted to join. Keita agreed, and Aiko saw this as an opportunity for him to make friends. However, Yaoi noticed an increasing amount of malevolent energy. After the meal ended, Keita left with Yama's group. When he got into the car, he noticed an unsettling, cold presence. Yama shared with him a story about a certain club within the university. This club consisted of dangerous individuals who disguised themselves as a wholesome group but would recruit people annually for mass suicide. The group was never officially disbanded because each year, it would reappear under a new name. However, there was always one person who survived to continue this tradition, the leader. This leader was said to die the previous year and reappear the next year in a different form. The only constant was the name Yama. Keita suddenly realized that Yama, the leader of the group, was behind these mass suicides. Before he could act, he was drugged and lost consciousness. Meanwhile, Yayoi, monitoring through a camera, discovered that Yama wasn't insane, but was possessed by an evil spirit. Realizing that Keita was in danger, she and Aiko set out to rescue him. Keita woke up in an abandoned apartment and saw several people around him hanging by their necks, on the verge of death. Yama was about to kick the chair out from under Keita, but he struggled to resist. Meanwhile, Aiko and Yayoi tracked down Keita's location. The apartment was infamous for having over 100 people commit suicide there in the past. Yayoi couldn't figure out why the evil spirit named Yama orchestrated these mass suicides, thinking she'd have to investigate further. Keita continued to struggle while Aiko and Yayoi arrived at the apartment. The door was locked, so Yayoi had to reach inside to unlock it. She told Aiko to rescue Keita while she dealt with the evil spirit. Yayoi rushed in and poured alcohol into the mouth of the evil spirit. When Yama grabbed a lighter and attempted to set everyone on fire, she smashed a glass bottle over his head. Afterwards, Yayoi explained that Yama was once a criminal sentenced to probation. When he returned to society, he faced discrimination, isolation, and even bullying. Overwhelmed by resentment, he became an evil spirit, dragging others to die with him. Yayoi strongly opposed this, believing that every person's life should be their own decision. The group quickly left the scene. Keita wondered why the evil spirit didn't burn them alive, but instead used hanging. Suddenly, he felt a chill again. Yayoi explained that Yama's evil spirit hadn't been completely destroyed. She elaborated on how evil spirits function. The stronger their will to remain, the longer they stay in the world, but eventually, they run out of energy and vanish. Yama used the method of hanging to easily consume the souls of those who were still attached to the mortal world. These consumed souls would suffer an existence worse than death. Yayoi suggested leaving the remaining bodies for the police to handle, as she had already acquired a fragment of Yama's spirit. On the way back, Keita grew despondent, thinking he might not make any friends during college. Yayoi teased him, saying it would be harder for his body to avoid spiritual incidents. Keita then considered that he might focus on breaking his curse first before reintegrating into normal life. He wondered if he could truly overcome his fears, like Yayoi had. Yayoi offered to teach him, but Keita was curious about how they managed to find him despite not knowing his address. Yayoi playfully said it was a woman's sixth sense, which Keita naively believed. A few days later, Keita went camping with the two girls. Aiko and Yayoi were busy taking creepy photos to post online for likes, while Keita thought camping was a good idea. Since he had recently gone through some misfortune, Aiko and Yayoi had invited him to relax. Aiko was also happy Keita came along because she partly wanted to take Yayoi on an outing. Yayoi wasn't someone who would ask to go out on her own, and having just the two girls on a trip felt awkward, so Aiko invited Keita to join them. At one point, Yayoi asked whether it was okay for men and women to sleep together in the same tent. Aiko felt completely fine about it. Later, Keita and Yayoi went fishing together. Yayoi asked what Keita thought about giving her a proper response to something she had previously asked. However, Keita couldn't answer because he was still conflicted about a few things. He worried that the process of collecting evil spirits might curse him and put Aiko and Yayoi in danger. Keita thought Yayoi had a bright future ahead and didn't want her to be at risk. To settle things, Yayoi decided to compete with Keita in fishing. If she caught more fish than him, Keita couldn't object to her ghost hunting activities anymore because her life was her own to control. The two spent the whole afternoon fishing, but neither caught any fish, only frogs and crabs. When they returned to the camp, Aiko had already prepared a grill and skewers, waiting for them. The three enjoyed a fun meal together. Later that night, Aiko told Yayoi to go to bed first while she stayed back to chat with Keita. They eventually decided to take a walk. Aiko went down to the river to feel the cold water and asked Keita if he knew why she often visited spiritual places. She explained that she wanted to scientifically understand paranormal phenomena. She always recorded changes in her cursed hand in her notebook. Additionally, part of the reason she stayed close to Keita was her curiosity about why he attracted so many spiritual incidents. Keita asked how she'd feel if he decided to visit dangerous spiritual locations as well. He still wanted to find the evil spirits and break the curse because Aiko was the most important person to him. Aiko promised to help him no matter what, and the two made a pact. As they were about to head back, Aiko suddenly saw someone jumping off a bridge. When she called out to Keita, he said he saw nothing. Thinking she was just seeing things, Aiko dismissed it and returned to camp. That night, an evil spirit began moving from the river toward Aiko's tent and tried to approach her. Keita woke up to find Aiko walking away. He stopped her, but she claimed she wanted to go to the bridge. Keita called Yayoi for help, and she quickly realized that Aiko was possessed. This evil spirit couldn't be transferred to a stuffed animal like others Yayoi had dealt with before. Based on what Aiko said, it seemed the spirit was forcing people to jump off the bridge. Yayoi decided to let Aiko lead the way because doing nothing would leave her stuck like this forever. Keita followed Aiko to protect her, while Yayoi prepared to destroy the spirit. If an evil spirit could possess objects, Yayoi would capture it and take it home. Otherwise, she'd eradicate it. The spirit eventually appeared. Yayoi used a stuffed animal containing Keita's fingernails to try and trap it. However, the spirit quickly escaped and attempted to possess Keita instead. Keita managed to use another stuffed animal to capture the spirit while it was weakened and placed it in a salt-filled bag to restrain it. Just as they thought the ordeal was over, Aiko continued walking toward the bridge railing. Keita had to hold her back. Yaoi then realized there wasn't just one spirit but a whole group. They were using Aiko as bait to lure Keita to the bridge. Keita and Aiko fell off the bridge but were saved by ropes Yaoi had thoughtfully tied to them earlier as a precaution. Yaoi scattered salt to repel the spirits, capturing one more and giving it a choice: either vanish or enter the stuffed animal and serve her. 2 spirits were captured and 8 others fled. Keita and Yaoi suspected there were more than just these spirits in the area, and the only way forward was to deal with them gradually. Even though the spirits were weak individually, their numbers made them difficult to handle. As Keita decided to regroup with Yaoi, he was suddenly confronted by 5 evil spirits. Aiko grabbed Keita's hand, preventing him from escaping. The spirits grabbed Keita's legs and dragged him to the ground. Aiko then poured a puddle of water infused with an evil spirit into Keita's mouth. Fortunately, Yaoi had given him a bottle of holy liquor beforehand to use in case of possession. Keita managed to spit the liquor onto a straw doll filled with rice, trapping the spirit. Yaoi had prepared multiple straw dolls to capture all the spirits. Both Yaoi and Keita successfully trapped 2 spirits each. However, the remaining spirits grew serious and summoned 6 more to join them, bringing the total to 10. Yaoi acted quickly, having the spirit she carried consume one of them, reducing their numbers back to 5. Yaoi then gave the remaining spirits a choice: submit to being sealed in the straw dolls and serve her, or face unbearable pain. The spirits submitted, but Yaoi demanded to know which one had possessed Aiko. They unanimously pointed at one of them, which Yaoi promptly dealt with. However, Aiko still wasn't freed from the curse. To make an example of what would happen to liars, Yaoi used the recently captured spirit as a warning. The true culprit behind Aiko's possession finally revealed itself and resisted, attempting to retaliate against Yaoi. However, she used the pink stuffed animal containing another spirit to show it a vision of hell. One of the straw dolls exploded, and Aiko returned to normal. When they returned to the camp, Aiko listened to the account of what had happened, shocked by her recent experience. The group then went to sleep. The next morning, Keita met Aiko by the riverside. Although she didn't remember much, she recalled the warmth of Keita's hand. She was happy that Keita had always protected her. Despite Keita humbly saying he had caused her trouble, Aiko saw him as her hero. They confessed their feelings to each other, and Keita resolved to protect Aiko if she ever got involved in strange events again. Upon their return, Keita made up his mind to join Yaoi in collecting evil spirits to break his curse. He understood that being involved with the supernatural would isolate him from society. However, he decided that first, he would lift his curse to cleanse himself fully, then rejoin society to avoid dragging others into his troubles. Aiko, observing all this, felt validated in her decision to bring Yaoi and Keita together. By doing so, she had effectively bound Keita to his curse and ensured they could continue exploring haunted places together as before. Keita, who had once tried to avoid paranormal events at all costs, had now found something he wanted to protect. That evening, Keita asked Yaoi whether cases involving a group of evil spirits, like the one they just faced, were rare. Yaoi explained that such cases were indeed uncommon. As she had mentioned before, evil spirits often sustain themselves by consuming other spirits. Living in groups made them prone to cannibalizing each other. Thus, a collective of spirits only appeared under 2 conditions: when the spirits were unaware of their own deaths or when they faced a formidable enemy, forcing them to band together. Yaoi speculated that the spirit that had taken her mother was an extraordinarily powerful one. From her research, she had discovered that it was the final spirit in the phenomenon known as the Hayaki Yajo Night Parade of 100 Demons. Yaoi then tied a string around a coin and handed it to Keita so he could use his spiritual abilities to determine the location they would head to next. Keita suggested that Yaoi study first, and they would leave once it got dark. By evening, Yaoi had finished studying, and Keita kept his promise to go with her. However, Aiko had already prepared everything to take them both on their journey. Once they were ready, Aiko drove them on their way. Keita didn't want Aiko to be involved in any danger, but he had promised to go with her anywhere, so he couldn't break that promise. That day, when Keita arrived at Aiko's house, he felt embarrassed about the sweet words he had said to her earlier, but Aiko insisted that the password be about their relationship. Answering friend or benefactor wouldn't be accepted. She had even recorded Keita's confession to use it as her ringtone, so he had no choice but to admit they were a couple. Despite agreeing to let Aiko come along, Keita promised to protect her with his ability to sense malevolent spirits. Yaoi wanted Keita not to be too tense because she was there, and then Keita asked how Aiko knew their destination. Aiko explained that the place they were heading to was quite famous. It had been completed 50 years ago and was often covered by television and magazines. It was the East Tunnel. People said that a female ghost in a white dress, with long hair and a bloody face, roamed the tunnel. Sometimes, she would carry a child, or at other times, crawl on all fours and chase after cars. Most of the stories were about this female ghost. Aiko wanted to go back, so she and Yaoi walked in, with Keita following. Seeing Keita seem scared, Aiko reached out and took his hand. Keita thought Aiko was quite cute, but when he turned around, he saw that she was still a little distance away from him. Shocked, he didn't know who was holding his hand. Yaoi immediately noticed the hand of a malevolent spirit and quickly used the stuffed animal to catch it. However, the spirit quickly escaped, so Yaoi suggested they go outside and drive in. The three of them then drove to the tunnel and stopped there. Aiko mentioned that the ghost could get into the car, but if they locked the doors, it would remain outside. Keita soon felt an ominous aura, and the ghost appeared in the mirror. However, as soon as he warned the two girls, the ghost vanished. The ghost then suddenly appeared right in front of the windshield, causing Yaoi to immediately tell Aiko to accelerate and crash into the ghost. Yaoi wanted to assess what kind of ghost it was. One possibility was that they would pass through it, another was that they would pass through it and the ghost would stay in the car, and the third was that they would crash into it. After observing, it seemed that this ghost could not enter the car unless invited. Yaoi then opened the door and invited the ghost in, quickly trapping it inside the stuffed animal. Once caught, they used a rope to tightly bind the ghost's neck. The three of them quickly headed back, but Keita suddenly felt like someone was sitting next to him. He assumed it was the malevolent spirit in the stuffed animal, so he relaxed his guard. No one realized that the spirit was actually right next to Keita and followed him back home. Once home, the spirit continued to follow him, even into the bathroom. By the time Keita was going to sleep, the spirit suddenly grabbed him and dragged him up to the ceiling. Meanwhile, Yaoi realized she had mistakenly caught a harmless ghost and had been deceived. She understood that the ghost was more cunning than they had thought. Yaoi decided to hurry to Keita's house to check on the situation. Keita's mother, seeing someone come knocking at midnight, was angry at first, but then happily greeted Aiko when she realized it was her. Aiko explained that she had come to return Keita's forgotten phone and decided to say hello to him while she was there. Keita's mother didn't expect her son to have such a lovely student like Yaoi. After entering Keita's room, Yaoi came face to face with the ghost, but it immediately bound her neck. In reality, before entering, Yaoi had used the coin tied with a string to determine the ghost's location, and knew it was at the door. The image she had seen earlier was a fake. Yaoi managed to escape the binding and grabbed the ghost's hair, using it to strangle the spirit and force it to release Keita. After Keita was freed, Yaoi continued to tighten the ghost's neck until it agreed to enter the stuffed animal. The next morning, Keita could barely remember what had happened and just felt very tired. However, Yaoi reassured him that he had truly been taken by a spirit. Keita felt disappointed, as he wanted to help catch malevolent spirits with Yaoi, but ended up becoming a burden to her. Yaoi, however, reminded him that they had been together for a month and the number of spirits she had captured had increased significantly. Each person had their role in the team, and as long as everyone did their part, things would be fine. Keita's role, however, was still just as bait. That evening, Keita returned home, and Yaoi decided to check his backpack. She found the malevolent spirit from the previous day had hidden in it, so she caught it again. Before closing the bag, the ghost made a gesture as if asking for Keita's help, but he could only shrug. Suddenly, Keita received a call from the intermediary informing him that he had a new student. The next day, Keita went to the meeting spot to meet the new student. He didn't know what to expect, but soon after, a girl appeared. Keita was surprised to see that his new student was a girl with a cheerful personality and a bit of a Western flair. She tripped as she ran up to him. They then went to a restaurant, and the new student asked Keita if he thought she was cute. Keita noticed that she was wearing star-shaped contact lenses, so he gave a polite compliment. He had never interacted with this type of girl before, so he wasn't sure how to handle the situation. Keita asked why she had come to a restaurant instead of studying at home, and the girl explained that she couldn't focus at home and had come here for a change of scenery, plus to enjoy some good food. Keita introduced himself, and the girl also introduced herself as Mio. Afterward, Mio took a liking to Keita's food, and he came up with an idea. He decided to play a game with Mio. For each question she answered correctly from her homework, he would give her a piece of food. If she answered wrong, he would eat the food instead. If Mio managed to eat more than him, he would treat her to any dish she wanted. Keita realized that Mio wasn't uninterested in studying, but rather, she just hadn't found a way to engage with it. However, Mio answered every question incorrectly, so Keita ate all the food. Mio wasn't satisfied and ordered more food. Suddenly, the staff rushed over and spilled a cup of water on Mio, causing her to cry, lamenting how unlucky she was. Keita then asked her if she felt a heavy burden on her shoulders. Mio was puzzled, asking how Keita knew, and he pointed to the footprints in the spilled water. Mio was surprised that Keita could also sense spirits, but he explained that he could only feel their presence, not fully see them. Mio then explained that she had always been weak as a child and had frequently been haunted by ghosts, bringing misfortune to herself and those around her. However, she had never been possessed. She used to have an older brother, but one day, while accompanying her, a beam from a nearby construction site fell on him, killing him. She had always blamed herself for his death, believing she was the cause. Mio had always thought her brother's spirit had followed her to protect her. Although she was scared of ghosts, she still wanted to live well so that her brother could rest in peace. She hired a tutor to improve her studies for her brother's sake, so he would be at ease. Keita then took Mio to Yaoi for help. Mio didn't believe Yaoi could solve her problem, but Yaoi quickly noticed two spirits following Mio. She then used a stuffed animal to capture the malevolent spirits. Once everything was settled, Mio was able to leave, thanking Yaoi for solving her troubles. Keita then took Mio home, but suddenly that night, as Keita was sleeping, the malevolent spirit entered his dreams to inform him that he had to save Mio because the dangerous spirit was her brother. Yaoi then informed Keita that the effigy of Mio was being strangled, so Keita rushed to pick her up, and they both headed to Mio's house. Mio lived alone in an apartment, which made Keita wonder why her parents allowed their 16-year-old daughter to live alone. Yaoi asked about the location of Mio's room and climbed up alone to check on the effigy. As long as the effigy was still intact, it meant that Mio was still alive. At that moment, Mio discovered that her brother was trying to strangle her and cried, asking why. Yaoi then broke down the door to stop her brother's spirit. However, the spirit suddenly stopped and had accumulated enough time to pass on peacefully. Keita also entered the room, and Mio believed that her brother must have hated her for causing his death, which was why he wanted to take her with him. However, both Keita and Yaoi didn't sense any hatred from her brother's spirit, so they thought there had to be another reason behind it. Mio then said that she would die in 4 years because a deity had chosen her, and when she turned 20, that deity would take her away. This was a family tradition. Keita then noticed a picture on her bedside table and realized that the spirit who had appeared in his dream was in the picture as well. Mio couldn't see the ghost in the picture, and Yaoi also needed to focus before she could see it. Yaoi recognized that the white ghost was very powerful. The reason it had been captured was that the star in Mio's eyes had disappeared, but suddenly, the star reappeared, and Yaoi realized that the spirit had escaped from her room full of malevolent entities. It was indeed powerful enough to be a deity, and Mio was the bride of a deity. At that moment, the lights suddenly went out, and the spirits began to enter the room. Yaoi explained that the energy of the deity was radiating from Mio's eyes, which attracted ghosts and evil spirits toward her. Keita asked Mio how long she had been living there, and she replied that she had only moved in 2 months ago. The sight of her brother had also been the first time she had seen a ghost, although she occasionally experienced sleep paralysis, and her shoulders always felt heavy. Keita was surprised that she had managed to live in a place where spirits freely came and went and still remained unharmed. Yaoi then called Aiko, who arrived quickly after hearing Keita was in trouble. Keita asked how Aiko knew the exact address, and Yaoi had to explain on her behalf. Keita had to introduce Mio to his girlfriend, which made Mio seem somewhat skeptical. Yaoi then discreetly told Aiko about Mio's situation and asked her to let Mio stay at her house for a while. Aiko offered Mio some sweets to invite her to come along, but Yaoi warned that eating sweets at night was dangerous. Keita then went outside to use the bathroom, and Yaoi told him to come back soon before the dangerous entities appeared. However, just as she finished speaking, Keita immediately encountered the very danger Yaoi had mentioned. Keita pretended not to see it and walked on, hoping it wouldn't attack him, but the evil spirit grinned at him. When Keita reached the bathroom, he realized that the evil spirit had followed him there. He acted as if he wasn't afraid, hoping the spirit wouldn't target him. After washing his hands, Keita had no idea what kind of evil spirit he was facing, but he immediately noticed the spirit behind him, playing with his brain. Had it not been for Yaoi's effigy, Keita would have been in serious danger. Keita then hurriedly tried to leave, running back to the room and pretending everything was fine, urging everyone to leave quickly. The group reluctantly followed Keita's lead and left, but Yaoi realized that Keita's panicked behavior was likely due to the spirit following him. It wasn't too strong, but it had been trying to approach Keita to disrupt his mind. When the group reached the stairwell, they found it under maintenance, so they had no choice but to take the elevator. However, the elevator doors wouldn't close, which started to worry the group. Just as they were getting anxious, the doors finally closed, but the evil spirit's face appeared on the screen. Both Aiko and Mio saw it. As the elevator moved to each floor, the spirit's face appeared on each level. When they reached the first floor, the spirit's face disappeared, and Keita decided to go outside to see if the spirit was still lurking around. He quickly led the group to run, but suddenly, the spirit appeared in the elevator and extended its arm to grab Mio. However, the deity's mark on Mio's face protected her, and the spirit grabbed Keita's leg, pulling him into the elevator. Mio and Aiko tried to hold Keita back, but he had to push them away, knowing it was pointless. At that moment, Yaoi rushed into the elevator to help Keita, and the two of them were trapped inside. Mio thought she had once again caused someone's death. In the past, her father had believed that she was the cause of misfortune in the family and asked her to leave. Her brother had been able to stay with her, but it was because he stayed that he paid the price with his life. Now, it was Keita, and she felt like the evil spirit was targeting her, yet Keita was the one suffering the consequences. But Aiko hugged Mio and reassured her that with Yaoi with Keita, everything would be fine. Keita and Yaoi were then taken down to the basement, a place that clearly didn't exist. They had to face the evil spirit, which took out 4 brains, and 4 souls appeared behind Keita. He suddenly saw the memories of a ghost and learned that the evil spirit had taken their brains to turn them into its servants. The souls were forced to haunt the elevator and bring more victims to the spirit. Keita told Yaoi what he had learned and explained that they needed to deal with the evil spirit to free the souls. Yaoi had a plan. She handed Keita her doll, saying the spirit inside it would protect him from the 4 souls. The condition for their victory was to lure the evil spirit into the elevator and separate it from its domain, the basement. Yaoi then rushed forward, leaving Keita confused as she told him to stay inside. She used a rope to approach the evil spirit, knowing it would underestimate her because it had been targeting Keita. The way to deal with hunters like it was to exploit its carelessness. Yaoi quickly looped the rope around its legs, and Keita helped pull it. The spirit was restrained and dragged toward the elevator. Yaoi believed the spirit had touched the effigy that protected Keita, making it very angry. As the spirit reached for the brains, Yaoi used the rope made from the hair of a female ghost to strike it. The spirit was pulled into the elevator and was soon devoured by the spirit inside the doll. Yaoi realized that they could now go back to the surface, but she wanted to return to Mio's room to take care of the remaining matters. She also planned to perform a cleansing ritual for the 4 girls to prevent them from lingering too long and turning into evil spirits. As they passed by the 2 girls, Yaoi sent a message to Aiko to let her know that both of them were still safe. Keita was terrified by Yaoi's method of cleansing. She explained that in the past, people used to hang the bodies of dead crows to scare away other crows, and similarly, cleansing spirits meant helping them find satisfaction. She had left the evil spirit for the 4 souls to deal with. Once they had tortured the spirit enough, they would find their own satisfaction and transcend. Although she wasn't sure how long it would take, leaving the 4 souls torturing the evil spirit in Mio's room would make other spirits afraid to enter there. Yaoi then decided to go back to her room to grab a few tools. When she met Aiko and Mio again, Mio was relieved that they were both still safe. However, she didn't want to stay with Keita and Yaoi anymore, fearing that she would bring misfortune to them. Yaoi, however, reassured her that she had locked the evil spirit in Mio's room to prevent any other spirits or evil beings from interfering with her. If Mio continued to drag misfortune, Yaoi would lock it all away for her. On the way back, Mio decided that from now on, she would find out the reason why her brother had tried to kill her. Keita was happy that Mio had finally decided to stand up for herself. When they returned to Yaoi's room, the group was shocked to find that a large number of Yaoi's stuffed animals had been destroyed, apparently by the god. Yaoi swore that she would make that god pay for it. The god immediately left Mio and appeared to ask Yaoi how she planned to capture him. Yaoi replied that the evil spirits he had just destroyed were mere children, and the more mature ones had yet to join the battle. Above all, she was confident that she could handle him alone. Based on his status as a god, he must have been over 500 years old, and a 500-year-old god wanting to marry a 20-year-old girl was essentially a lolicon. She then pointed out that the remaining dolls were shaking, not from fear but from anger toward him. Therefore, she planned to prepare a slave position for someone like him. The god, intrigued, said he would keep a spot for Yaoi in his collection. He then disappeared and returned inside Mio, warning the group to prepare well because he would annihilate all of them and humiliate them to their very souls. No matter how they struggled, Mio's curse would remain. Yaoi then pulled the group outside, locked the door, and told Keita that her evil spirit faction had been thrown into disarray. They would now fight each other to determine the strongest. Keita knew that the room was now a hell, but after a while, the sound stopped. Yaoi opened the door, and only one stuffed bear remained after the purging. However, it now had plans to rebel. It called Keita, and Yaoi warned him not to answer the call, or he would become a cripple. Aiko also received a call, but the bear trapped the group. Aiko hadn't answered yet, so Yaoi tried to lock the bear up. She used everything she could to trap it, and luckily, Keita managed to open the door just in time to stop Aiko from answering. Yaoi said that this evil spirit could now be considered a graduate-level evil spirit, the strongest one. It couldn't be suppressed. Its power could extend up to 5 houses, so Yaoi would need to carry it around and keep an eye on it. Now Keita could go home, and they would meet again tomorrow. Keita hadn't expected all these events to unfold, and Yaoi had clearly sacrificed a lot to make such significant progress. The individuals sacrificed in the process would help create a new path. The next morning, the group returned to Mio's room to hang some seals to lead evil spirits directly to the place where the 4 souls were torturing the evil spirit. This would show other spirits that they shouldn't dare approach Mio's room. Afterward, the group went back to Yaoi's room to clean up the evil spirits that had been destroyed. While cleaning, Mio realized that today was the anniversary of her brother's death, so she had to go back home to her parents for the day. After a few hours of cleaning, Keita and Yaoi were quite exhausted. Yaoi apologized for dragging both Keita and Aiko into this situation. They were lucky to be alive so far because the god was a competitive being. Now, they needed to quickly find a way to deal with him, or the next time they encountered him, they might lose their lives. Yaoi explained that her usual practice was to collect evil spirits to use as test subjects to protect herself from spiritual attacks. Over time, she had built up an army to gradually defeat the evil spirit that had kidnapped her mother. However, confronting a god had caused her army to lose many members, so now they needed to hunt stronger evil spirits to rebuild their army and eventually face the god. Once they captured the god, Yaoi was confident she could confront the evil spirit that had taken her mother, and Mio would be freed from her fatal fate. Keita asked how many they would need to face the god, and Yaoi explained that she had once defeated a god with just 3 graduated evil spirits. If they wanted to capture the god, they would likely need 6. Currently, she already had 3 graduated spirits, plus the one created yesterday, bringing the total to 4. There were also extremely powerful spiritual sites across the country. If they could place an evil spirit in charge of one of these sites to destroy the evil spirit controlling another, a superior evil spirit would be created, one stronger than the graduated evil spirits. So, from now on, they would target dangerous sites across the country. Yaoi had already marked the most dangerous spiritual locations on the map. For now, they would conquer the sites in Tokyo first, and once they had enough combat strength, she would conquer the entire country. She believed that by defeating and claiming at least 20 sites, she would create the strongest army of evil spirits. Whether facing a god or the evil spirit that had kidnapped her mother, it wouldn't matter. Keita realized that he would have to endure even more, but since they had already made a plan, the lesson could now begin. Yaoi immediately felt discouraged, and Aiko, needing to write a report, left ahead. In the afternoon, after finishing her lesson, Yaoi wanted to go for a walk with Keita. He rode a bike, taking her with him, and Yaoi shared that she had always fought alone until Keita appeared. She was very happy to have someone to accompany her. To her, Keita wasn't just bait for evil spirits, but a trusted ally. Keita decided to thank Yaoi and let her choose a place they could go together. Yaoi pointed out a location, and Keita followed her directions, only to find out by evening that they were heading to a newly created dangerous spiritual site. This site hadn't been marked yet, but its danger level was S. Yaoi also wanted to test the strength of her newly graduated evil spirit. Keita knew he had no choice but to follow since he had already promised Yaoi. Yaoi warned Keita in advance that S-level sites had one common feature. Once entered, there was no way out unless they completely destroyed the evil spirit that controlled the place. As they entered, Yaoi informed Keita that although the evil spirit here was strong, it was quite benign since no one had died here. It seemed the evil spirit only scared people away to prevent them from returning. Keita and Yaoi were about to turn back when they suddenly encountered an old woman. Although Yaoi knew she was an evil spirit, she simply said they were visiting, so the old woman guided them further. Yaoi pointed out strange signs in the area, most notably the feeling of being followed, the sight of ghostly figures of dead soldiers, and the spirits of several women trailing behind. Finally, the old woman revealed that the place they were in was an ancient castle. In the past, the soldiers had fought to leave, which led to the castle being attacked by enemies. The castle's entire population was wiped out, and most of the women were beheaded by the invaders to prevent the people from resisting. The surviving women later chose to commit suicide by jumping into a waterfall. Their blood stained the water for 3 days. Yaoi then handed Keita a stuffed animal that had not yet been turned into an evil spirit for protection, while she herself kept a graduated evil spirit and the finger of the evil spirit that controlled the child spirits from before. But suddenly, Keita felt someone behind him and turned to check. Yaoi saw nothing and told Keita to keep going. However, Keita then noticed the footsteps of the old woman coming from behind. At the same time, Yaoi was unexpectedly grabbed by Keita, who saw that the old woman was actually the evil spirit. Keita realized he was now separated from Yaoi. Meanwhile, Aiko, who was checking on Keita, noticed that his signal had suddenly disappeared. Keita, realizing the danger, decided to run and search for Yaoi, but at that moment, Yaoi sensed something strange as well. The evil spirit quickly knocked Yaoi unconscious and seemed to be interested in the finger of the evil spirit she was holding. Keita ran desperately, trying to sense the location of the graduated evil spirit to find Yaoi, but he was soon surrounded by other evil spirits, which locked his body in place. He then witnessed the tragic sight of the women from the past committing suicide by jumping into the waterfall. In that moment, Keita saw himself standing on the edge of the waterfall, preparing to do the same. The spirits of the women urged him to remember this moment. Keita woke up in the middle of a forest and discovered a stab wound on his neck. The substitute doll he had been using was destroyed, and he realized he had been cursed. In a panic, Keita ran to find Yaoi, but when he reached her, he discovered she had already passed away. He fell down a hill and found Yaoi's body hanging. In his panic, he realized he was standing in front of a waterfall. The evil spirit controlling the waterfall told him he needed to remember this moment. It had engraved a curse on him that would stay with him until his death. Keita realized how naive he had been to fall into this cursed situation, while Yaoi had already lost her life. However, before that, Yaoi had sensed something unusual and, seizing the moment when the evil spirit wasn't paying attention, she used a rope to attack it. After subduing the evil spirit pretending to be the old woman, Yaoi realized Keita was in danger and rushed to save him. Keita, meanwhile, discovered that Yaoi's body was a fake. It suddenly embraced him and seemed to be pulling him into the sky. Keita noticed many skeletons in modern clothing in the sky, realizing these were the people who had recklessly ventured into the site before. This explained why there were no recorded deaths. No one ever came back to tell the tale. The good news was that Keita realized Yaoi was still alive, but he wasn't sure if he would survive until she arrived. Just as he thought that, Yaoi charged in and punched the head of the evil spirit, shattering it. Keita was relieved to see Yaoi was still safe. However, the real problem now was the evil spirit's head, which was still casting a curse on him. This curse would gradually sever his head, and the area around them had been enclosed by a barrier to prevent their escape. The evil spirit would drain their souls once the head was fully severed, gaining more power. As Keita suspected, the reason no one had talked about dying here was because no one ever returned to tell the tale. Yaoi noticed the finger of the evil spirit she was holding was trembling with fear, confirming Keita's theory. She believed the situation could be dealt with simply. Yaoi then released her own graduated evil spirit, and the one within the black bear's stuffed animal turned out to be a dark master. The master began chanting a spell, and Yaoi gave Keita some earphones to prevent him from hearing the chant, as the chant would cause anyone who heard it to die. The dark master would then absorb the souls of those he killed. The barrier created by the evil spirit was soon consumed by the dark master's power, and the barrier vanished. The evil spirit then decapitated the Dark Master, but the head continued chanting, so the evil spirit had to cut off the master's mouth. However, the creatures who had heard the chant continued to repeat it, so the evil spirit cut off their necks as well. Despite this, even the souls captured by the Dark Master continued chanting, and this caused the massive barrier and the evil spirit's body to collapse. The spirits then rushed to capture the evil spirit, forcing it to reveal its full form and flee. Yayoi realized it was trying to kill all the creatures capable of chanting in order to absorb the Dark Master, so she had no choice but to pursue it. Since it was too dark for Yayoi to follow the trail, Keita had to rely on his instincts to help her chase after the spirit.